Good evening, friends. Myself, Dr. Nidhi Darbari, on My Education Treasure. Today, in my present video, I am going to discuss the traits of effective and defective narration technique of teaching. One important method of teaching is the verbal narration of something by the teacher. Narration is an oral communication of some reference, object, or an incident which is presented in such a lively and interesting style that a mental picture is formed in the student's mind. It means telling stories, giving account of events, or recounting some past incident of life. Narration is an art. According to Panton, narration is an art in itself which aims at presenting to the students through the medium of speech clear, interesting, ordered sequence of events in such a way that their mind constructs these happenings and they live in imagination through the experiences recounted either as spectators or possibly as participators. The success of this device depends upon the ability of the narrator's own power of expression, his verbal felicity, his gestures and facial expressions, his speech, language, and the way of narrating. Narration helps children to learn quickly by making the subject matter interesting and easy to grasp. It is a very effective device for teaching social sciences, literature, and natural sciences. It is used as a means of arousing interest in learning. Dramatic narration is very useful for creating interest and enthusiasm. It is an art that is normally acquired after long practice. The narrative technique involves the use of the imagination to make a subject both comprehensible and interesting, and although people confuse the technique with the storytelling method, the two are not identical. All narratives do not take the form of storytelling. The teaching of history, geography, or civics can be done through the narrative method, but this is not storytelling because here it is a narrative of facts and places, not of individuals and events. It differs from plain simple description in as much as it aims to create a vivid picture in the educand's mind. Traits of effective narration. In order to make an effective use of the method of narration, the teacher should keep in mind the following traits of effective narration. Firstly, presentation of a lively picture. Narration must succeed in creating a vivid mental picture of the subject in the recipient's mind, because the success of the technique depends upon the vividness of this picture. The teacher must make use of his imagination, but this must be supported by a sizable vocabulary. Engaging style. The effectiveness of the method depends upon the interesting style of the educator. It is here that one finds a difference between one educator and another, because while one can make a subject interesting, another may turn it into something unbearably drab. If the style is interesting, it catches the educand's mind and maintains his curiosity. Simple language. Success in narration depends to a great degree upon the language used. It should be simple and clear. Demonstration. In order to make the narration lively, it is better to use some teaching aids and apparatus such as map and charts in the case of history and geography. The teaching of mathematics is greatly facilitated by the use of diagrams and graphs. In the case of social sciences, the teacher has to draw upon his funds of stories, jokes, etc. to illustrate his subject matter. Demonstration or illustration not only makes the subject more comprehensible but also makes it more interesting, thus improving the concentration of the audience. Even the blackboard can be extensively used for this purpose. Appropriate speed. The speed of narration must be appropriate. Every teacher should be able to understand all that is being said. Going too fast or too slow is not desirable. Systematic presentation. When the subject of narration is divided into many parts and presented systematically and in an orderly manner, the student is greatly helped in his understanding of the subject. For this, the main idea should be split into many pieces and arranged systematically. The process of learning can be improved by asking questions at the end of each step in the narration. This should be followed by making the educand arrive at a conclusion which should be used as the basis for the next step. This informs the educator of the extent to which his audience is following him, while it helps the educand to summarize and thus memorize the subject matter. The asking and answering of questions lead to the educand's active participation. Loud, clear and sweet tone. Since the narration is done verbally, the teacher's voice and tone plays an important role in it. He should speak in a loud, clear and pleasant tone. If this is not done, the subject becomes drab and uninteresting. He should also vary his tone as the tone of the narrative itself changes. Dramatic style. As far as possible, the educator should try to make the narrative more lively by resorting to gestures, facial expressions, bodily postures, etc. in keeping with the subject matter. But this dramatic presentation should not be so overdone as to make it theatrical and ridiculous. Narration for teaching. Narration is not merely for narration or for the student's pleasure. Its aim is teaching, and if the teacher finds that the method doesn't succeed in teaching anything, he should abandon the method and choose another. Narrator's background. Success of the narration depends not only on the words but also on the speaker's own background, character, enthusiasm, self-confidence, knowledge, personality, etc. Hence, the educator must try to develop his personality and character, keeping this in view. Question and answers. In order to make the narration more lively, it should be interrupted with questions and answers. This keeps the educand on the toes and does not allow them to become lethargic. Absence of sermonizing. If it is not proper to fill the narrative with long sermons because children are averse to listening to them and thus they soon ignore what is being said. As far as possible, the narration must make each point quite clear. The narrative can be successful in the class depending upon the educator's ability. It is definitely more powerful than written matter because the educands take more interest in it. It creates a very vivid and clear picture in the student's mind, and a powerful narration creates feeling of respect and affection for the teacher. Besides, the narration can be used to guide the students because the intelligent teacher can illustrate the narrative by mentioning incidents from real life and also including in the narration guidelines of how the educand should behave in such situations. Traits of defective narration. Despite the above advantages of the narration method, it also suffers from certain defects. The following are some of the important traits for defective narration. Number 1. Passive education. In this method, the teacher alone is active because the students make up only an inactive audience. Secondly, it is not concerned with comprehension. Very frequently, the teacher is more concerned with concluding his narration than with comprehension of the educand. He rarely bothers to find out if they have understood anything. The method should be supplemented by the question-answer technique, in which the educand must be encouraged to ask the questions. He may otherwise be afraid of interrupting the teacher. Improper language and speed. If the language is difficult and the narration is carried out at a high speed, the student understands almost nothing. This has the inevitable effect of the student losing interest in the narration. Not lively. If the narration is not lively, loss of interest is the only result. Educational significance. It provides so much knowledge to the students that they need not to read various books. It helps the children to learn quickly by making the subject matter interesting and easy to grasp. It can be used to track almost all the subjects of school curriculum. It can guide the students properly. This makes them interested in solving various problems of life. It makes use of illustrations such as models, chart, maps, graphs, etc. in order to make the content more interesting and lively. Practical suggestions for improvement. It has already been pointed out that the use of various suggestions given above, interesting style, large vocabulary, use of teaching, etc., can safely take care of these defects, and the method can become a powerful medium of instruction. As far as possible, the educator should resort to the language of everyday, spoken in a natural and unaffected style. It is not necessary for the educator to memorize every part of the subject. Even if he remembers the main points, he can successfully narrate the subject. During narration, the educator should keep in mind the objective of the narrative, and to this end, he should repeat the main points. Narration should be in simple and clear language. The purpose of narration should be clear and direct. If you found the video to be informative and interesting, I request you all to please give a like to the video to motivate me, share it with others and subscribe it so that whenever I upload a new video, you will get a notification. Style of presenting should be dramatic and interesting. It should present a vivid picture of the subject. Narration should be well prepared and planned. There should be continuous flow in the sequence of events. The material of narration should be both recreational and informational. In order to avoid monotony, different types of material should be presented at different occasions. It should be indirect speech as far as possible. The stories should be selected on the basis of children's need and interest. Thank you very much for patiently watching the video, and don't forget to subscribe.